Hi, everyone, and thanks for dropping in on my channel, Path and Perspective. Um, I'm new at this, and there's some things that I just kind of had makes you think, and when you want to think and you want to get some of the stuff out, um, just want to share it. If you like this channel and you like what's in it, please like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it because I do appreciate you for stopping by and let's talk about a thinking man's filter. Now, I don't know if some of you are familiar with that phrase, if you're in the same age bracket that I am. um, and I'll get to that a little bit later here. But I got to thinking about all the information overload that we are on right now. We're in that age where content just streams endlessly across our screens and opinions fly faster than facts. The concept of a thinking man's filter has never been more relevant, I believe. Now, but what exactly, and that's or what I'm getting at is that what does that phrase exactly mean? And how can we glean or cultivate any type of discernment from that phrase, those three words, and what it implies? So, the phrase "a thinking man's filter" actually it emerged from a marketing campaign years ago, back in the early 60s, maybe 50s, most notably used to describe certain cigarette brands that position themselves as more sophisticated alternatives to their competitors. Now, that implication, what they were implying, was pretty clear that this just wasn't any product. It wasn't any cigarette. It was for the discerning individual who made thoughtful choices rather than just following the crowd or following the path that everybody else was taking. Now, while the original context may seem dated or even problematic by today's standards, the underlying concept transcends its commercial origins. At its core, it represents the idea of applying critical thinking to our choices, whether we're selecting what to eat or what to read or what to believe, even, or even how to spend our time. Now, we're kind of like in a modern information ecosystem today, which is kind of a paradox that we all face. Uh, we have unprecedented, vast amounts of information we can access, but but yet finding truth feels increasingly challenging. Getting down to that core of what truth is or what they're saying, is it true? Social media algorithms feed us content designed to confirm our existing beliefs. News cycles prioritize speed over accuracy. I mean, we watch wars now um, live stream over TV. Entertainment masquerades as education, and opinion is often presented as fact. You hear people that that's fake news, or I don't believe that, that's a lie, but they don't take any data or facts and to back it up. So in this environment, developing a, well, I should say a critical thinking person's filter isn't just useful, it is really essential for intellectual survival and mental health. But what are the some of the key components of critical, let's just call it discernment? It's critical discernment. And I came up with uh, five of them, actually six, well, five. One, two, three, four. I came up with four. First, you have the source. What's the source? You got to evaluate that source. A thinking person's filter begins with questioning the source. And it's okay to question. You can question the source. You can question people. You can question a thought. You can question people in church, your pastor. There's nothing wrong with that. You got to look at who is presenting this information. What are their credentials, their motivations, and do they have any potential biases? Now, this doesn't mean automatically that we dismiss sources we don't agree with, but rather using the understanding as a lens through which our information is being presented. Then there's evidence and logic. Does the argument rely on solid evidence or emotional appeals? Are the conclusions supported by the premise? Now, a well calibrated mental filter looks for logical consistency and asks for evidence. What's the data? What backs this? Proportional to the claim that's being made. Then there is a context and nuance. Complex issues rarely have simple solutions, yet our media landscape often presents them in binary terms. The thinking person's filter seeks out context, acknowledges nuances, and remains comfortable with uncertainty when definitive answers aren't really available at that time. Then you have to have your own self-awareness. Now, your own self-awareness perhaps is most importantly the filter requiring an honest self-reflection. What are your own biases? When are we most likely to accept information uncritically? Recognizing our cognitive blind spots is the first step in developing better judgment. Okay, so, we have all this. How do we apply it? How do we make this work in our life to being and using the thinking man's filter, the thinking man's critical filter, or the critical thinking man's filter? Media, touched on a little bit of that earlier. Instead of just passively taking in whatever content appears on our feeds and as we're scrolling, we can actively curate our information diet. So, now this might mean subscribing to diverse sources, fact checking. That's the big thing, doing some fact checking. I like doing fact checking because it is like a deep dive for me. It's like where you're doing research, to some of these surprising claims, that pop up here and there, or you could just simply slowing down to think before sharing, before we think, or I mean, before you talk, or before you hit that share button with somebody. And then there's also decision making, whether choosing a career path or if you're evaluating, like say, a potential investment, which, I look at being in my senior years, or deciding who to vote for. The thinking person's filter should ask, what evidence am I basing this on? Have I considered alternative perspectives? What are these people seeing that I'm not? Am I being influenced by irrelevant factors? It's all stuff that we really have to take into consideration. Now, there's the conversation and debate and discussion with others. This filter helps us listen more carefully. You can be a active listener, ask better questions, and change our minds when presented with compelling evidence. And that's probably one of the more difficult things to do, is to change your mind, stray off the way you think that it should be, while also standing firm when our reasoning is sound. If you've got the facts, you've got the data, you've got sound reasoning, stand on it, hold true. However, now there's a balance to strike here. Excessive skepticism can lead to paralysis or cynicism. The goal isn't to doubt everything, but to calibrate our confidence appropriately. It's some claims require a little bit more fact checking and scrutiny than others. Extraordinary claims require a lot of evidence, but mundane claims can often be accepted as just right at face value. So, in cultivating this discernment and developing a critical thinking man's or person's filter, it's an ongoing process, not a destination. It's a journey. Okay. And it requires, I came up with four things. We need intellectual humility, which you don't see too much of that these days. Curiosity, you need patience, and then you need the practice to put it into play. Intellectual humility, acknowledging what we don't know. And it's kind of tough to do. I mean, if you don't know something, I mean, we want to play it off like we do know it. And, oh, yeah, 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 I've heard that. But sometimes you just got to say, I don't know what you're talking about. Would you share that with me? Where, what are you saying? Where are you coming from? What about the curiosity aspect of actively seeking our challenging perspectives? And then there's patience, taking time to think before reacting. Then there's the practice aspect of it, of regularly exercising our critical thinking muscles. When people develop better filters, when we as a human race, when we develop better filters for information and ideas, society as a whole benefits. Public discourse improves, democracy functions better, scientific progress accelerates, and most of all, cultural understanding deepens. The thinking man's filter isn't about elitism or intellectual superiority. It's about taking responsibility for the quality of our own thinking and, by extension, contributing to a more thoughtful world. So, to kind of wrap our journey up here down this path, um, in our pretty complex, interconnected world, developing discernment, it's really not a luxury, it's more of a necessity. It's more of a need than a want. um, Whether we call it a thinking person's filter, critical thinking, or simply just maybe you just want to call it good judgment, the ability to carefully evaluate information and ideas before accepting or even acting on them is one of the most valuable skills we can cultivate. So the next time when maybe you're encountered or you encounter a compelling headline, an emotional social media post, or a pervasive argument, pause and engage your filter. Ask questions, seek evidence, consider alternatives. Just think before you accept what is being fed you and think before you share. You know, we live in a world where there's a lot of noise. And like with me, in my daily routine of where I work, I take the back roads home. I don't take the rat race of the highway. I take the back roads. That's where I get my clarity. That's where I get my thoughts. You know, in a world full of noise, I take the back roads when I go home. I drive the back roads. I don't take the interstate. I don't take the highway going home. I kind of avoid the what I call the rat race. Uh, that's where I get a lot of my clarity. It comes to me when I think carefully about what deserves my attention and what deserves to be filtered out with my critical man's thinking filter. So anyway, I appreciate you. Like and subscribe if you like what you're hearing. Um, as always, until next time, keep your perspective clear and your path open.